This is the Queer Cinema Catchup recap and reaction to Severance Season 2, Episode 9, The After Hours. Joe and I will quickly recap what has happened in this episode, play a few Severance-themed games with these whiteboards, and then talk theory. In other words, we're just two obsessive Severance heads ready to rumble. All right, recap. What was going on with Mark, Devin, and Cobell?
Mark is not doing too hot. Devin is driving him to meet Miss Cobell out in the woods. Miss Cobell tells Mark to tell Mr. Milchek that he will be out sick today or else he'll grow suspicious. I feel like Mr. Milchek already is suspicious because Mark's been gone pretty much the entire workday. And he eventually does.
What happens to them at the end of the episode?
They go to the birthing center.
I hide Mark beneath a sheet in the back of the car.
Much like in the previous episode where Patricia Arquette was in the bed of the truck.
I guess it's just a convenient way to sneak.
Patricia's like, wait a moment, I did this before. I have an idea, Mark.
And they go into the birthing center.
Mark becomes his innie and meets with Miss Cobell, someone who he has not seen this whole season.
Yeah, Innie Mark has not.
And then we're left off on a giant cliffhanger.
What was up with Dylan G this episode?
Innie Dylan G proposed to his outie wife this episode, and she rejected him because she had admitted to outie Dylan that they had this tryst, and he did not take it well. And so she felt obligated to say no to Innie Dylan G's proposal.
And then, of course, this prompts Dylan G to hand in his Innie resignation, which they're allowed to do now. Before, Innies couldn't quit without their outies' permissions. Now the rules have supposedly changed. We'll see what happens next episode. Mr. Milchek is having a rough season. You know, Mark has not shown up to work, Cold Harbor. It's time to complete it. It's 96%. They need to get to 100%. We all want to know what the hell happens when it gets to 100%. And his boss, Mr. Drummond, is basically saying, it's your fault Mark's not here. And something in Milchek kind of snaps. He says, actually, it's not my fault because when Mark's not at work, that's not my responsibility, it's yours. And then he kind of is a little bit more, even more insulting to Drummond, says some choice words after Drummond kind of insults his highly intelligent language. And then he goes back into the separate floor, speaks to Mark on the phone, and seems to have a moment of human connection with Mark when Mark claims he's not really sick, he just needs a personal day because work is just work. And poor Mr. Milchek, who seems like work is really the only thing that matters to him in life, says, all right, but you promise you'll be here tomorrow? And Mark says yes. Okay, what was going on with Miss Huang?
Miss Huang completed her internship, or whatever the fuck it was.
Wintertide Fellowship.
And she's getting booted off the campus.
She's not allowed to go home to her parents.
Bus is coming to pick her up and take her somewhere.
To the Empathy Center. I didn't catch the whole name, but the Empathy Center, somewhere very far away, it sounded like to me.
And Miss Huang, in response, she said, I thought I was going to finish the quarter. She was very upset by this.
She seemed sad.
She feels like she has failed Dylan, because Dylan quits in front of her.
And she was overseeing the wife and Dylan's meetups.
And Dylan said, it's not your fault.
Which was really actually very touching. Do you think that's the last piece we'll see of Miss Huang? Do you think her purpose is to kind of make us think of what Patricia's childhood was like? Miss Cobell's? Or do you think there's something more for her?
There's something more, right?
I don't know. I can't tell. Okay. Moving on to Burt and Irv. Irv walks into his front door and his adorable dog Radar is staring down a dark hallway, and Christopher Walken, aka Burt, is sitting in his armchair looking very menacing indeed. And he has all the files up that Irv has collected on different Lumen employees. He seems to have been investigating them, and Burt says, wow, you've written down here that I was a goon that killed people. I was never a goon. We use very specific words at Lumen. Will you take a drive with me? And Irv's like, okay. So then they get in the car, they're driving along, they go to the train station. Burt confesses he actually was just a driver. He would drive people where they needed to go. Whatever happened to them, aka when they would get murdered probably, really wasn't any of his business. And Irv's like, is that what's going to happen right now? We as an audience are not quite sure. They get to the train station, Burt buys him a ticket and says, hey, I don't know where this goes. It goes all the way. You have to get off somewhere. Don't tell me. Like, you deserve to go and be free, but you can never come back to Kier. And Irv's like, hey, we loved each other down at the separate floor. I've never been loved, and I'm ready now, which actually is a callback to the first season when Burt kind of had a romantic moment with him, and Irv said, I'm not ready. So now he is ready for love, but tragically he has to board the train.
They embrace with foreheads, a lot of forehead action.
A clever Reddit commenter was like, everyone's hooking up all season. It takes Irv how many episodes just to get to their forehead bump?
And Irv keeps saying, I'm ready, over and over again. And Burt seems hurt to say that he can't go forward.
Yes.
So he definitely has strong romantic feelings for at least his innie self having feelings for Irv.
He said that he liked that he became severed because he wanted to know that a part of himself could still be innocent, and then his innocent part fell in love with Irv. So it's like him honoring this innocent part of himself, which is very beautiful. There was a weird kind of cut between Irv on the train and then the hallway to the testing floor. So that makes me wonder, it makes you question reality a little bit, like what's going on here.
In fact, Allison was like, wait. And I was like, what? Wait. And I thought they were going to like reveal something right there, but I was like, what the fuck are they going to reveal? I was like, wait. I was like, can you just tell me what you're thinking? Wait.
I'm just wondering.
I still got an answer.
I'm just wondering if maybe the Audi's reality isn't the real reality. I don't really have a fully formed theory on this. This is the theory section. But anyway, there's been a lot of speculation online that John Turturro is not returning to Severance, so people think that maybe he's being written out. I certainly hope that is not the case because there is a lot going.
This is leaking all over me.
Pineapple break.
That's one juicy pineapple.
Yeah, so I don't think they're going to write him out because...
Doesn't it smell like a pina colada?
It does. Now I want one. I don't think they're going to write him out because there's just so much left undiscovered about that character and his backstory and about Burt. So I hope that there's going to be more of Irv. But what do you think? Staying in this season going to be on more episodes, or do you think that was the last we saw of Irv?
I don't think it's the last we saw of Irv.
Okay, I'm glad we're in agreement. Okay, what was going on with Helena, Helly, and her dad?
Oh, this episode started very oddly. Helena and her father, Jane.
It actually starts with Helena doing a ton of laps and then coming upstairs to eat a single hard-boiled egg.
This is the first time we've seen their house before.
Looks a lot like Lumen.
She's eating this boiled egg, and then
she cuts into 6 pieces.
Her father, with like what they use to like slice a pineapple, what they use to slice a, well, they can also use sliced pineapple with it, but you know, like those like apple things that you get from Williams-Sonoma and slices it all. She uses that for an egg. And I forget what James says to his daughter, but...
He says he's just gonna, will you eat? I'm just gonna watch. Then they talk about how it's a big day, how they're gonna handle Irv, which also makes me suspicious about what's going on. It seems like Burt was helping him, but maybe he wasn't. You know what I mean? There's just like a little bit of confusion there. And then it's like the big day. It's the day of Cold Harbor. I think they're both aware of that. And then James says to his daughter about the egg, I wish
you would take it raw.
You would take it raw. I don't think we need to say anything more about that.
No.
And then at the end of the episode, so Helly is upset when she gets to work. Mark's been missing for 2 days. He doesn't come into work. She tries to convince Dylan to help her find the testing floor with the little note that Irv left behind the poster. Dylan is more interested in proposing to his wife. And then Helly gets the note. She's memorizing it at her desk. And this is toward the end of the episode. A figure appears behind her. And we think it might be Milchek, but then it's revealed that it is actually her father, who Redditors were speculating was probably there because he thought it was the Cold Harbor day and wanted to be on the floor. And he says to her, you've tricked me, my Helly. We also learned about him that he sleeps around, and the birthing center is often used for one of James's women who've gotten pregnant, basically. Mm-hmm. So that, there's a lot of, I don't know what to make of that. What do you think?
Maybe think incest.
Yeah. The egg that she was eating was on this plate with these 2 men who looked very similar, and then in the center was a child who looked a little strange, and that also felt weirdly incestuous to me as well.
And it was an egg.
And it was an egg that was split into many pieces, which also makes me think clones.
Oh, so it's symbolic.
On to our games. And the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna rate this episode. And we are going to guess what the other person has rated this episode on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being horrible, 10 being incredible, best episode you've ever seen. You seem to be hesitating. You seem to be trying like a very large number.
All right, what did I guess?
I think you picked a 4.
I would have guessed a 7 for you.
It was a 6. Okay, and I think we both rated it. I love Severance, and I'm also someone who's gonna do a lot of grade inflation. That's just kind of how I roll.
Mm-hmm, I thought 7.
I know, but I was disappointed. It felt like there was a lot of potential in this episode to drop a big bombshell at the end of the episode, and it felt like everything was building towards something, and then it kind of was a letdown, and that's why I'm giving it.
Well, they did like a negative fake out where it's like leading up to like Dylan's quitting, and then Irv's like leaving town.
It just felt like
so you
something.
can see Irv's like going off on the train, and Dylan's going up the elevator, and I was like, oh man, is that gonna be the end of the episode? And it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, you're right.
They're going to the birthing center. We're like, oh my gosh, we're getting more. But it was just leading to the
She's alive.
Cliffhanger. But it was still a cliffhanger. Like we get a cliffhanger with each person. We don't really know where anyone's going. And like Irv, it's hinted at like maybe he's not gonna show up for the rest of the season. Dylan, I think, will play a part in some way the rest of the season. And then Mark is, like, obviously, like, the main storyline that we're following. And I guess we get, like, James shows up with Helena, I think, in
I'm worried for
the
Helly.
after fake out scene.
Okay. All right, the next game's a little bit sillier, which is that I would like us to, in the show, Innie Mark, Outie Mark, they need to communicate with one another. They can't. That's been the big problem of the season. So I want us to pretend that we're Mark. And how would we tell our Outie that Gemma is still alive visually if the overtime contingency had never happened? Okay. All right, let's...
no words, only pictures.
And we have to do it as quick as we can. Okay, I did it. I'm proud of myself, actually. It does require you to know math symbol.
You're still on my thunder.
Now I feel like I need to draw more.
All right.
3, 2, 1.
What the hell's going on with yours?
This is a heart. These are wedding rings, not equal to death.
Mine is lady, not R.I.P. equals happy son. I guess I should have drawn like a little.
What do you guys think? Do you think that this would have told you that Gemma's still alive? Okay. Now we're going to play a very quick game of Would You? And we just have to write yes or no on our boards and then guess what the other person would have said, but you need to answer as you.
So the question posed is,
Would you go for a ride with Burt?
what would you say to Burt if he asked?
Oh, are we pushing past the yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. 3, 2,
Wait.
1. Oh.
Aren't we guessing what
Oh,
the other
yeah.
person said?
Okay, well, I think that you said yes.
That's all I'd say?
You'd be like, yeah, man, let's go.
I'd say, sure, why not? Which is the same sentiment.
What did I say?
Well, I feel like you're in a room with Burt, and you'd say, yes, of course I'd go. Of course I'd go. And then when Burt wasn't looking, you'd be like, you'd like run out the back door.
That's actually accurate, but what I said was if I can bring Radar with me, because
he did bring Radar.
he did, and the dog was really cute. All right, now we're just gonna end the episode with a little bit of theorizing. This episode shares a title with a Twilight Zone episode from 1960 that was also remade in the 1980s, The After Hours. It's episode 34, and it originally aired June 10th, 1960. And the premise of this episode is what?
A woman is shopping in a department store, demands to buy a golden thimble for her mother, gets taken to the 9th floor, discovers there's a scratch on the thimble, and attempts to return it on the main floor, where they proceed to tell her that there is no 9th floor. And then the woman slowly discovers that she, in fact, is a mannequin on a 1-month vacation and has forgotten she's a mannequin, and it's her turn to relinquish her human abilities and become a mannequin once again, so another mannequin has an opportunity to take their retreat for 1 month.
And we were both very struck by this quote that ends the episode. Marcia White, who is the mannequin in question. Marcia White, in her normal and natural state, a wooden lady with a painted face, who once a month out of the year takes on the characteristics of someone as normal and as flesh and blood as you and I. But it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Just how normal are we? Just who are the people we nod our hellos to as we pass on the street? A rather good question to ask, particularly in the Twilight Zone.
And so, before Allison unleashes what I think is an amazing theory, I turned to her and said there's a lot of theories on Reddit going around about how, Miss Casey may not be who we think she is, that she has in fact actually did die, and that this is some type of android. It's a very common theory that a lot of people are passing around. And I was like, I think this might be true. And then Allison turned to me and said something so shocking, so surprising, that it opened my mind into a new Twilight Zone.
Don't you feel like it's very similar to what you just said, though?
No.
Oh. Okay, well, basically, I had the thought that perhaps Gemma is not a real, is not a real person at all. Never was. We see in episode 7, the first time Mark and Gemma meet, and it's at a Lumen blood drive. And it's an adorable meet cute that made me personally want to root for the couple. And it just kind of struck me that's an interesting setting. We don't know anything about Gemma or really Mark from before that time period of the two of them falling in love. And I wondered, what if she was never real at all? What if she was a Lumen plant from the start? And it was always intentional for her to get into the accident and then, if she was not a human, that's why she can't have children, because she's not an actual person, even if she believes that she is. And that's why they're able to hold her on the testing floor, and it's legal. There's no outcry because she is not a human being with rights, but a product of Lumen. And that's kind of what I think might be going on, which is extremely tragic, especially because, just because somebody is a robot or whatever doesn't mean that they can't have consciousness and feelings and a humanity to them.
But maybe not even that she's an android. I thought it was interesting that she could have been birthed as a product from the very beginning.
Clone, whatever. Yeah. Well, now it makes sense.
Android implies that.
It's totally right. It's totally right because they showed in episode 7, they zoomed in on the bone marrow and all the stuff they're making her food with. She totally is not an organic. Well, she's a human made of organic material, but not a human that came to be in the typical way that humans come to be.
Because when I hear android, I think they built a mechanical robot that has wires and stuff like that.
Petri dish.
Yeah, and so I think that's totally on the nose because, well, not because, but why it was so well done in episode 7 and why some of us may have not caught it is because it was just such an emotionally and visually overwhelming episode. And you feel like you're getting all this backstory on Gemma that you'd never gotten before, and you are, but only to a certain point.
Yes.
And it's when Mark has entered the picture. So there's this whole history of Gemma before she ever met Mark that we don't know about.
Yeah, and you were pointing out that Lumen, in all these different rooms, they seem to be pulling details from her memories, and we were like, how could they know all these random details about these experiences she had with Mark? But if she was some kind of property of Lumen,
where they could hear everything.
Maybe they can see what's going on, and that's how they're able to pull these triggering details from her life and put them into the different rooms.
Mm-hmm. Now, what Cold Harbor is actually trying to accomplish, I don't think we quite know yet, but it's something that Mark has to complete.
Yes.
And in this episode, it was supposed to be the day that they were going to complete this mission, but has been
It was
stalled.
the shining day for Lumen, and Miss Cobell said that if you finish Cold Harbor and Mark, she's like, did you? Mark doesn't know because he's outie Mark. Then Gemma is already dead. Mm-hmm. Is what she said. I guess we'll find out next week, guys.
Well, who's gonna die?
Oh, I think it's gonna be Helena now. She, above all else, wants to defeat Lumen, and she does not care if her life is extinguished. She proved that in season 1, and so I could see a world. I think that she might be the one to get to Gemma first because she's already memorizing how to get down there, or maybe she'll even convince Daddy to take her down. And then she'll find Gemma, and knowing Helly, because also we watched the credit sequence today. I don't know if you noticed, but when it zeroes in on the elevator, it's Clay Gemma, but then it flashes and it becomes Clay Helly, and then flashes back. So maybe they swap places. Or I did see a theory. I don't have a lot to say about this. It was not my theory that they're trying to put Helly's consciousness into Gemma's body, or vice versa.
There was a poll.
A poll?
Who would continue watching if Mark died?
Oh.
Yes or no?
Oh, you didn't tell me? You didn't put...
I told you I was going to post it, and you're like, I will definitely be looking at that poll.
68% of people would continue to watch if Mark Scout dies at the end of the season, and they are correct.
I mean, I can see it.
I don't want any of them to die.
Well, someone will.
But I'm going to keep watching no matter what. I like when I get gut punched by television. It's a safe way to experience those emotions.
That's true. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment with your own theories, comment with your own thoughts.
We'll see you soon.
For the Severance finale.